Hello, everybody. Oh my gosh, you just caught me at my coffee break. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the Tammy Tuckey Show. I don't have this mug for any other specific reason, but we have a special guest tonight. So good to see you. Very excited because this has been a year in the making of getting this interview together, and I'm so thrilled to welcome actor Dan DeLuca to the show. Hello, Dan.
That's a great mug.
Oh, and it has 1993, so the mug is older than me.
Wow. Yes,
Oh
that's
my
amazing.
God.
That's amazing.
It's a prized possession. That's why it usually sits on like the back corner over here.
I
So
love that.
yeah, it's great. It's hard. That was like the one thing that when we first met, because I was so lucky to do the Q&A for the Goodbye Girl off Broadway, and Dan snuck up on stage because he had done the show, and we didn't want to wear anybody out, but he snuck up on stage and we got to talk a lot, and you were like, where did you get this merch? I got the hat, the pin, everything. So
Yeah, it was amazing. It only ran Goodbye Girl. Yeah, so for context, we did it last year in this nice little off-Broadway slot for a couple weeks, but the Broadway show only ran for a year, a little over a year. Is that right?
like 9 months.
Oh, not even 9 months. Yeah,
not even a year. Yeah. I think with the tryouts included, it was like about a good 9-10 months that they had. And I just remember somebody messaged me, I think it was Shoshana actually, and she was like, did you hear they're going to bring it to off Broadway? And I was like, no, but this is going to be great. So, but before we jump into the Goodbye Girl, because that's my obsession, we got to talk a little bit about, because you work in musical theater, you've done so many different shows, and I'm always curious where you got the bug. Did you do community theater to start off, or did you just see shows and you were like, I just want to do that,
Yeah, I was never hired for community theater. I was never hired. I guess I wasn't good enough. I guess I was never hired for community theater.
Aww.
But no, I saw, I think I got the serious bug from seeing Kathy Rigby in Peter Pan when I was in kindergarten, and just like being able to see that. I mean, that was huge. I mean, it was such a beautiful production directed by Glenn Cassell and Kathy Rigby just flying over the audience. And it was just absolutely amazing. And I loved Peter Pan. I'm the boy in between two sisters. I'm the middle child between two sisters. So I was raised on a ton of Disney, and I was like, this is amazing. And I loved making people laugh and being a ham and putting on shows, and also middle child syndrome. So maybe like a little bit of look at me too. Look at me. But yeah, I just kind of, I grew up and I wrote my shows for the Vacation Bible School, and they and I had a video camera and I made movies all the time. And people just kept saying like, you're actually kind of good at this. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just kept going. And I moved to New York when I was 18, and just,
oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I did a conservatory. It was called Cap 21. It was a part of NYU, but I didn't go to NYU, but I still got the same conservatory training, and I showcased with NYU, but I did it in 2 years as opposed to the full degree. And I was able to work when I was in school, and I got my equity card when I was 19. I worked with
goodness,
which was like wild because he was a huge influence on me, like doing Avenue Q and Johnny and the Sprites and things like that. And I actually I love Shrek the musical when I was in high school so much, and I saw it so many times. And I stage door, and I would just would talk to John Tartaglia at the stage door, and I told him I did puppeteer stuff too. And I was like, is there any way I can audition for anything you're working on? And then his casting director reached out to me about because of Winn-Dixie, which was a Duncan Sheik and Nell Benjamin show. Duncan Sheik, obviously Spring Awakening, and Nell Benjamin, she wrote Mean Girls, and she wrote the lyrics to Legally Blonde, and they were working on Winn-Dixie at the Good Speed Opera House. And I think I was 19 whenever I got that workshop, and Julia Murney was my mom, and Natalie Venetia Belkin who's Gary Coleman in Avenue Q, she was in it. Steve Blanchard, who would go on to be Pulitzer in Newsies with me. He was in my first equity gig. And yeah, John Tartaglia directed. It was wild. It was just like a way to be like thrown in. Like, here you go. It was such a dream come true. So that was my first like big gig. And I've just been fortunate to be working ever since.
So you're a big puppet fan. So have you seen the new Jim Henson documentary? I'm just curious of the Muppet.
I haven't had the moment to like pay my full respect. I started the other night, and it's on the agenda for this weekend to like actually sit down and watch.
You're gonna love it. I just finished it this week, so it was good. It was really good.
I'm so excited. Yeah, it came out on my birthday, May 31st. It came out on my birthday. I was like,
happy early well, late birthday.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Are you a fan? Because I think you said you're a fan of Disney. So are you a fan of like Walt Disney World or the theme parks or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, going there. As a kid, Walt Disney World. I hadn't been to Disneyland because I'm from Pennsylvania, and we would go to Disney. We went there, I think, 4 times throughout my childhood, and I just absolutely fell in love. Country Bear Jamboree is my favorite band to this day.
Aww.
Yeah, they throw it down. And I didn't go to Disneyland until I was on tour with Newsies, and we were in California, and that was just a magical to be thrust into Disneyland. So yes,
definitely different.
Tokyo. No, not Tokyo. Oh my God, not Tokyo. Disneyland Paris. I've been to Disneyland Paris too. So.
Okay. Well, now I'm really jealous because you went there. What year was that? Because I'm curious. Because there was a Martin Short film over there, and I just was wondering if you had seen it.
I did not. I did. Well, wasn't he in the Canada? Didn't he do Canada and Epcot? Wasn't he?
He did Canada. He did The Making of Me, which was this controversial film at Epcot at the Body Pavilion about the making of you. And then he was also in Monster Soundstage Show, which was when MGM opened. They would have audience members go up and make sound effects to Chevy Chase running through a murder mystery house and Martin Short trying to kill him. So yeah, it was, he's done a lot of Disney things, and I'm like dying to have him on the show because I'm like, you've done so many weird things, but he did a short film called Cinemagique in Paris. And basically he sucked into the movie screen into all these movies. And it's amazing.
That is amazing. Yeah. Martin Short. I did not see that. And it was very rainy. That was the thing too. It was rainy whenever I was there. I was only there for one day, and I was like, and it was cold. I was like, this is not, I'm not used to be. I was like in a rain jacket and I was freezing, and I was carrying an umbrella walking down Main Street. I was like, this is weird. But I would like to go back now that it's refurbished and stuff too for the 25th anniversary. They've completely redone it. That's why I went before then, but yeah.
And the reason I mentioned the Disney thing was I had seen a picture. If you've seen Muppet Vision 3D, do you remember that?
Of course.
And they just put the Jim Henson poster, the documentary, right near it by like one of the stands. And I was like, oh, this is so great. They're updating the area still.
Oh yeah.
I feel like the Muppets never get any love anymore. So
I know. It's been tricky for them.
Poor Muppets. Yeah. So.
But there are OG still. Muppet Christmas Carol, I still think is the greatest Christmas Carol there ever has been and ever will be. So, yeah.
Again, another curious thing: why haven't we had a Muppets musical? And if anything, we should have that one.
I know for a fact that they were working on it. I don't know if they are still working on it, but I remember being in the Disney theatrical offices, and they had the puppets were there. Like I saw Kermit. I met Kermit.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, let's cross our fingers.
I know.
Maybe we can make it happen.
I know. That would be.
You could be the young Scrooge.
Wow. How about that? A young Michael Caine? That'd be great. It's just
you can do accents, right?
Christmas Carol the musical. It's not even the Muppets. It's just Muppet. I mean, I'd go. I'll do anything. I'll do anything.
I would love that. I think I think the other thing when you see the documentary, you also get to see them work with the Muppets, and not a lot of people get to see that aspect. So then you're like, well, how did they do this? How did they do this? And I think they showed some clips from that movie in showing how it's very difficult. They have to bend down and contort.
I'm obsessed. I literally that's all especially when Avenue Q came out, I was like, this is amazing. I still literally think I contemplate. I'm like, I think I'm not the only actor who thinks I'm like, what the heck am I doing with my life? And then I just think, could I just go work on Sesame Street and just be the left arm of somebody and just call up John and be like, hey, you gave me my equity card, but can you get me on Sesame Street and just
please?
I'll literally just be the left arm of Cookie Monster. That'd be fine.
I'll be the back end of Snuffleupagus. You know, I
Yeah.
just like, he's my favorite. I'll be like, I'll do whatever you want me to do.
I know, it's so magical. And that was another thing too. Like I've never done Avenue Q, and it like what, just how fun is that? There's
Yeah.
I love puppets.
That show's great. And you don't realize like the physical pain you go through with that. So you guys are lucky because you're equity, so you probably get like massage therapists to help maybe.
Maybe they did on I'm not sure if they got it when they went to New World Stages. I don't know. I don't know about that, but
I get nervous on that type of thing because like you realize after performing, maybe you've done something like that. You're like, oh, it is really difficult. And to do that for longer than 3 months is like, oh my gosh, it must kill the body.
yeah,
So that's why I'm like, Broadway dancers are amazing. They just, I'm like, bow down.
It is, yeah, it's wild. It's absolutely wild. Like you just the things that we do, and it's also like it's kind of masochistic, but it's also like I don't know. It's you feel alive because you're just like the things I've done, the scars on my body, like why did you do that? Like you, and also like I would choose to do certain things. I'm just like, oh, this would be way more cool, a little cooler if I do it like this. And like 3 months in, you're like, why did I do? Why am I doing this?
Why did I do it this way?
Like this.
Oh, somebody in the chat just actually wrote, Pennsylvania needs a Disney park. Well, we can attest to that. We will be there. We'll be there.
Absolutely. There's Hershey Park. Hershey Park is there, but that's not Disney. But they have a good theme ride inside of the store there. It's like a dark ride of like the making of the chocolate that we would go on all the time as kids. But
that food, so good.
Yeah, I haven't been as an adult. I haven't been, but
oh, you like they have like these cinnamon not pretzels, but they're like these sticks, and they're just unbelievably made because they're all fresh. But they have like a bakery, and the food there is fantastic. You can get candy, obviously. Like I'm all for candy, but they do have really good food. So
interesting.
Big fan of anything here. Goes, we have Sesame. We do a Sesame Place here in Pennsylvania, right?
That's right. Also, never. Have you been? I've never been there.
You've never, and you're in Pittsburgh. You never traveled down to Sesame Place?
No, I never. Dude, is it near Pittsburgh?
It would probably be long. It's in Langhorne, so it's probably like a good 3-hour drive or something like that. But like to me, it's one of those things you have to at least go to at some point if you're in Pennsylvania. So.
Well,
we'll have to make it happen. It's huge now. Like it used to be like a quiet little section, but the best part is the Rubber Ducky water park ride. It's amazing.
They have like a water park ride? I don't know. Yeah. I feel like I've just seen a sign for it. I don't even like know what. That's wild.
Dan, it's summer. Come on down. I'll show it to you.
Really? I know I have like 2 weeks of nothing. I'm like, I'm gonna fill it up with Sesame Place and Hershey Park.
And then we'll take you to Lancaster. They have Dutch Wonderland, all the good food.
That's the thing. I was doing Smokey Joe's at the Fulton a year ago, 2 years ago, and Dutch Wonderland was right there. Never went.
Why? Oh my god, it's so much fun.
I
know. They have a wooden roller coaster, and they used to have a really great theater troupe that had puppets and costumes, and they would get everybody to dress up and do shows. It would all be about a unicorn, and it was so much fun. And that, again, another kind of introduction for me as a kid was like that was like little things to bring kids and do theater, and so much fun.
I love
Oh my god. I'm so sorry. I'm like taking us off into tangents. We haven't even gotten to most of your career. So let's go to your national tour because you mentioned.
That's great.
I know. We could talk all day. So national tour, Newsies. Newsies is like this huge hit. Broadway, send you on a national tour. You get the role of?
Yeah, Jack Kelly, which was amazing. Just a wild. When I was little watching the movie, I always wanted to be Racetrack. I never saw myself as Jack Kelly. I always wanted to be Max Casella Race. I never saw myself as like Christian Bale. And then they were doing it at Paper Mill, and they transferred to Broadway. And I had just moved to New York. Like I had just graduated from high school and just moved to New York, and I got to see it standing room and Jeremy Jordan do it, and I was doing standing room, and I was crouching in the aisle because I couldn't see him from the elevated platform, and I was just by intermission. I was like, I think I need to do that. I was like, I think that's for me, and even a year and a half later, it was like, it was wild. It was absolutely wild how that happened. It was just wild.
Is that like a Disney theatrical auditions for something like that? Like, what's that experience like specifically? Is Disney any different in their hiring process, or
no? It was the same. It was through Telsey. Telsey was the casting director. There's a ton of casting offices, but Telsey is very big, and Tara Rubin is very big, and they were like the very Binder. Well, Binder doesn't exist anymore, but I was in. So I was in at Cap 21, and one of my teachers there knew the casting director of Newsies, and I was just like, is there any way I can like potentially get an audition or something like that? Because they saw that I was like pretty right for it, and they were hiring to be the understudy, but my dancing skills are not. I mean, talk about like the best athletic dancers there ever was and ever will be, or just like in that show. And so I was like, and the feedback just kind of was like, you're either going to be Jack or you're not going to be in the show. And I was like, that's fine. Like, that's totally fine. And, Corey Cott took over the role for Jeremy, like, I guess a few months in. And, I think he was thinking about leaving. So they brought me in again, but then he didn't end up leaving, like, just for auditions. And it was just like, and it went terribly. I was like, it was bad. Like I bombed it. I was like, they'll never see me again. Like, this was completely awful. But Jeff Calhoun, the director, was also from Pittsburgh, which is where I'm from. And I had done it for them a few times, and they just saw that it seemed like a good fit, but I bombed that one, like, really. Like, Harvey Firestein was in the room. I sounded like Harvey singing Santa Fe, and it was not. It was bad. I was
were you sick, or like what was going on?
Like, I guess I was sick. I don't know if I was nervous. I have no idea. It was just like one of those things. I was like, it's not today.
Just an off audition. We've all had them.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And I was like, this is my dream. Like, this is like my dream. And it was like, nope, not today. But they brought the tour happened, and they brought me back in, and they brought me back in, and brought me back in, and it was I was auditioning for that show for a year and a half. But then over that time, it's just like they could see, I guess, that I could do it. And I was 21 when I was cast, and 22 when I was out on the road. And it was just, and the Broadway show was closing like a month before we were about to start. I was like, do I still have a job? Like, it was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. But yeah, it was so magical, just absolutely magical.
Well, there's a reason you got the job. Let's take a look at why Dan got the job.
I have something to believe in, and I know you believe in me. I have something to believe in, now that I know you believe
So good. Like, wow.
That's so wild. That's Stephanie Styles, of course, who is my Catherine, who has gone on to have an amazing career. And we still, to this day, like, she'll just randomly text me and be like, remember when we did that? I was like, yeah, that's insane. We always would say too that I had two people always like, what's your favorite part of the show? I was like, and it was always between just like being with the boys and doing like Seize the Day, World Will Know, just like being with all of like just my best friends. Just like I didn't have like a normal college experience, and also I grew up with two sisters. So like just those guys have just become like my actual brothers. And then doing Something to Believe in with Stephanie, because she was as much of a Disney freak, if not more, than I was, and just being able to see Alan Menken like love Disney power ballad Under the Moon, and kissing to his underscores. We were just like, this is so wild.
It's like it's one of my favorite additions to the script and show. It's very, very good. It's like, oh wow.
I actually got to sing that song at Jack Feldman's wedding. So Jack Feldman wrote the lyrics, and I got to sing that song at his wedding, and that was one of the most like one of the biggest honors of my life. Andrew Lippa was the rabbi. Andrew Lippa was the rabbi at the wedding. And Corey Cott sang Santa Fe. I sang Something to Believe in. It was a wild wedding. It was a wild wedding. I was like, this is
Jack
insane.
was a sweetheart. So that's really cool.
Yeah. It was very special. Yeah. I love that
They-
song.
We got to see the tryouts. I think I saw it twice at Paper Mill, and Jack was there and Harvey was there, and then I ran into Alan Menken and like cried in front of him. And I was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Don't cry," you know. And that's what he said to me. He's like, "You don't need to cry. It's all good." I'm like, "I'm sorry, but it's just like you wrote my childhood." So you must have. So did you meet Alan and did you get to talk to him at all? Or
they got to fix because they weren't intending to go to Broadway initially, so they did as much as they could to get the Broadway show to what they wanted it to be. But they really took the time in the tour rehearsals with us to kind of finesse everything that they really wanted to fix. They added that new Crutchy song that's in it now.
Yes.
And like they were the creative team was heavily involved. It wasn't just like just go do what they did. It was like we were able to, they really finessed and changed something. So it was absolutely wild.
did you cry, Dan? Did you cry when he met him? Just as I did.
I didn't cry when I'm actually, I didn't know it was, I was standing behind him and he just kind of like turned around. And I was like, on the first day of rehearsal, I was like, oh my God. Because he wasn't there for the audition. Harvey and Jack were there for the auditions, but Alan wasn't there for the auditions and the callbacks. So, but yeah, I met him.
Alan's a busy guy. You know,
yeah, I would say
he's got
so.
things to do.
Yeah. He was like, I hear you're really good. I was like, I hope so. I hope so. And like, just
I hope I fulfill the need.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. Well, so I wanted to ask a question. I do want to let our listeners know that in the show notes, I actually linked to the Q&A we did. We actually, Lisa, who was one of the original kids in the Goodbye Girl 1993 cast, filmed it for us. Thank you, Lisa, because I was like, it was a special moment. And so Dan was able to kind of join us on stage with Marvin Hamlish's wife, Terry, and we and also David Zippel, who did the lyrics. And so we all had a really great conversation. Now, Terry brought up that the summer before you did the Nutty Professor musical, which we really didn't get into, but it's Marvin's last score, right? So she said there was this big story with it. So what happened to drive you to be a part of that production? Like what happened?
Yeah, so I was brought in at my first rehearsal for that. So it was at the Algonquin Playhouse in Maine. That has just become it's an amazing theater, theater. And I had done a self-tape for it. We were still like not at the height of COVID, but it was like still quite COVID-y. So it was mainly just like just self-tapes. And I had made a tape for it. My agents were like, we need to keep an eye on this show for you. They were like, this is like kind of like perfect for you. And I was like, I mean, it sounds like fun. Also, I grew up with Nutty Professor being like Eddie Murphy's, because I'm a child of the 90s. But it's based on Jerry Lewis's 1960s version. I was like, I'm the Nutty Professor? I was like, oh, okay, I understand. The show had been caught up for it premiered 10 years earlier. Jerry Lewis directed it. Marvin Hamlish wrote the music, and Rupert Holmes wrote the lyrics, wrote Edwin Drood and the Margarita song, the Pina Colada song. If you like Pina Coladas and Getting Caught in the Rain, Rupert Holmes. He's a crazy, amazing career. But Marvin Hamlish, so is Marvin Hamlish's last score, if you guys don't know, chorus line, James Bond. Amazing. And Marvin actually passed away when, I'm not sure if they were in previews or if they had opened. They were doing it in Nashville, and Marvin passed away. And the last song that he wrote was called While I Still Have the Time, and it's one of my favorite songs of all time. But it's such a special show, and it was caught up in a bunch of legal stuff for 10 years. And then I don't know, I think it was Terry is spearheading it as much as she can, of just trying to bring this, because it's the score is amazing and it's so funny. And it's basically like the nerdy teacher or professor who nobody likes him and like everybody just hates his guts. So it's just Jekyll and Hyde. Like he takes a potion to become like the coolest guy in the entire world. Like very Dean Martin. It's set in the 60s, like very like he becomes like basically like Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin becomes like a lounge singer, and it's just constant like back and forth between like taking the potion and like wearing off and him going like back, like it was like going completely cross-eyed, and like then I take the glasses off and I'm like really cool, like. And so like I got the materials, like this is amazing. So I sent in the tape and then went off to Central America for a couple months to go off on an adventure. And I didn't hear anything. I was like, I thought I was really good in that, but I didn't end up booking it. And then at the last minute, they had to replace somebody because of an injury. And my first rehearsal was the designer run. So I watched my amazing understudy. His name is Chase Peacock, and he did it with the book in his hand. And it was like the day before they were going up to May. And so I got to watch the show and I was like, this is so cool. Just, it's so special because it was written in 2010. So it has the feeling of like a musical of like that time. Like it doesn't feel like it's written in 2000. It wouldn't feel like it was written in 2023. 2002, I guess. Was it 2000?
Like a Catch Me If You Can type of feel, Legally
Like
Blonde
also,
era.
But like also it is Marvin Hamlish. It feels like, you know, like hair. It feels like very Hairspray. Like it's so good. And it was just a magical, like, and it was just a magical show. And just, it really just like brought me up. I was just like, this is amazing. So there's still, I mean, the word is that it's still in the works is my understanding. So yeah, I wasn't supposed to do it originally, but then they were like, oh, this is a very good fit. And I was like, it feels like it. I really, really like this. And then The Goodbye Girl happened. And I had loved, I didn't know the full score, but there was a song on the show called I Think I Can Play This Part. And I've been a Martin Short fan my entire life. And I sang that song in school. It's a beautiful song, and you can take that out of context. It's I Think I Can Play This Part. It's an actor. I'm playing an actor who's trying to get the woman he's in love with is her daughter to accept him as like being like, I'll be here for you for the rest of your life. Like, I love your mother and I want to be a part of your family. I think I can play the part of your dad if you want me to, or at least best friend who will be there for you. And but it, like, you can take it out of context. I think I can play this part, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I sang it at school a lot, and for some reason, it just because of Nutty Professor, I just immersed myself so much more in Marvin's work. And I like really started listening to Goodbye Girl a lot. And then they announced that they were doing it off Broadway. And it was Sierra Boggess and Santino Fontana. And they, through just a bunch of different connections, they were like, Santino couldn't do the first weekend because he had another symphony gig that he was supposed to do. And so they were like, hey, would you come in and like do opening weekend and just be like a potential like standby? And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
I was like,
yeah, why not? That's a great role. So
David Zippel, like I was like, this is Santino Fontana. I was like, what? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Jerry McIntyre was become one of my best.
Oh, Jerry!
Judah from Donny Osmond's
Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. We've had him last year when we had the anniversary. He's like the best.
He's the best. Yeah, so I was just there covering it up, but I knew it was going to go on, and I knew I was going to be. And then lo and behold, because of COVID and other things, I ended up doing every single show, which was it was just one of those things, just being like live theater. So I ended up taking over the part and doing the entire run, which was such a wild and crazy gift. Oh, Chris Sieber too. Chris Sieber was in it. Like,
yes,
it was wild. I was like sharing a dressing room with Chris Sieber. And I was like, told you, like, I stage door Shrek the musical to get my card, and now I'm sharing a dressing room with Chris Sieber. I was like, this is insane. It's like, this is one of those industries where it's just like magic. Like, when it's magical, it is peak
yeah
magic.
There's nothing like it.
Yeah, Yeah. And then I ended up, singing I Think I Can Play This Part, for
It
David
was
Zipp.
so beautiful.
Wild. Just absolutely. You're like, you can't write this stuff. It's like, and
No,
also
you
it's
can't.
supposed to be Santino. I was like, it's Santino Fontana. I was like, I'm happy to be here. But I was like, then I got to do the entire thing. I was like, this is wild.
It was so interesting because like you had, what was it, a week to do Nutty Professor, and then you kind of were thrown in to do this whole entire show. So it
Yes.
seems like these incidences happen,
Yeah.
not on purpose, but it's like,
but it's
uh-oh.
always like, you can call Dan, he'll do it. I was like, oh my God. Yeah. It's like, I had some quick
Things you had to learn.
Yeah, I learned Nutty Professor in tech. Like I was put into the show while we were teching the show. And that was like, a beast. It's just like, and I'm playing two different parts, and it's one of those roles where you're on stage the entire time, of course. And
there's some great B-roll of it, and I wanted to play a clip so we could actually hear some of Marvin's music.
Yeah.
So here's I think this is your first number in the show.
Stella, just picture how our meeting might go, like glycerin when greeting nitro, a grand kaboom that sends the room sky high. Stella, Stella, can't you see? We equals you and I.
So
Yeah.
cute.
It's so cute. It's so beautiful. Like the songs, it's just like, and it's also, I kept thinking this too. I was like, of course we all want it on Broadway, but at the same time too, like high schools will love to do it.
Exactly.
Like, it's just like, it's one of those magical things. You're like, you don't write, no one writes like Marvin writes these days. So it's like, it's one of this, it's very similar, like, not comparing, but just like it just has like a feel like it's nostalgic, because it actually is nostalgic, but nobody knows it. So it's one of those like special things. You're like, it's like a magical like little treasure box of musical theater where you're like, this is so. It's like it's the musical that like I would have loved, and like it's the dream role I didn't know that I had because I didn't know it existed. And it's
feel good. I think Marvin always kind of strives for that particularly, besides the way we were. But I think that he really does have like very happy music. I feel like the Goodbye Girl, it seems like the Nutty Professor, it's all stemmed through, cheerfulness and nothing, nothing depressing.
Yeah, I love, and so it was just, going back to that talk back too of Terry Hamlish, his wife, she wasn't expecting to see me. She's like, you're here again, like you're doing this, like it's not supposed to be you, but it's you. I'm like, here I am. I'm like, there's something.
He's back to save the day.
Marvin Hamlish, and also once again going back to Newsies, I'm like, I'm not the greatest dancer, so I'm not really doing a chorus line a lot ever. So it's just wild. I just never thought I'd be doing so many Marvin.
You dance in that B-roll clip, and I was like, wow, because you do all these like wacky dances, but you were really good. So when you said that, I was like, I think you're an okay dancer. You might be like not be like Broadway dancer like most of us, but you can dance. So
right, I'm not doing like, don't have to do like pirouettes, but like I do love to dance. Like I love movement. Like I do love to dance, but just as far as like doing switch leaps and pirouettes and things like that, I'm like, not for me. But like a good character choreography moment, like absolutely.
Yeah.
I do like dancing with Sierra, like when we did Goodbye Girl, like the
the Paula scene.
Yeah, the Paula song, like that was so fun to do.
You guys looked like you were having so much fun. I think that was because I never seen the show in person, but when you hear it and you see the bootlegs of the 93 version, you have something set in your mind. But coming into it, like Shoshana, Lisa, and I, we all were so like, we had such a good time watching you guys on stage because we didn't know what to expect, but we had so much fun because there were different changes, but everything, you guys were so perfectly cast and had fun on stage. So it's great.
I mean, it's like, if you're not having fun doing that, it's like something is very wrong. Something's very wrong.
Yes.
So, that was so magical. Yeah.
Because one of the things I asked you at the Q&A was like, you have Richard Dreyfuss and Martin Short they have their own versions of it. And I remember I said something like, you know, how do you craft your own version of that character? Because everybody has these pictures in their mind of what they want it to be. And what did you do to kind of start, you know, creating your own version of that character?
That's a great question. I don't know, because you can't do Martin Short. It's like you can't. No one could do Martin Short. And even like interesting because even like the when Santino would do it too, it's just like it was so drastically different as to what I was doing too. So it was really, I don't know, because it's a great. I mean, it's a Neil Simon book. Like it's funny and just. I mean, I'm playing an actor who's, you know, trying to make it's also very close to home. So I don't know. It's just like bring your, you know, with any role, you just like kind of bring the truth of like what you feel is right for it, and like hopefully like the creative teams like hire you for a specific reason if it feels in alignment. Because I remember the first day Santino couldn't be there for the first day either, and I did the read through, and I was just, you know, Chris Sieber and Sarah Bogus, and like, just like this incredible cast. But I was just
here we go.
I was like, I don't have a Tony Award. I don't have one. He does. But it was just like just reading it and just but David was so complimentary and so kind, and Jerry McIntyre too. Like they both just kind of like helped me along, and you know, me and Sarah found our own show and our own beautiful way of connecting, and yeah, it was just a blast. Just another.
It's fun when you get to do it with somebody else, because you do it so often with sometimes the same person. Not that it's a bad thing, but like it really changes the dynamic, right? So
I love it when understudies get to go on, because it's like, oh, this is magical, this is wild. Like even the last show that I did, I was just doing Bonnie and Clyde, and one of the understudies had to go on for the person playing my wife for the entire last week, and it was just like, oh my, I was like, well, this is completely like how fun. It's just because it's like actually listening, and
you got to pay attention.
Yeah, and just, you know, and it's also, you know, especially with comedy too, because everyone is so, you know, we bring our own things to it. It's just been like working out comedy beats is like one of my favorite things to do on stage of all time. Just been like, how's this gonna work? Like, and then like, and it's I don't know. I love it. I absolutely love it. I grew up. I'll say this too. I before slime tutorials on YouTube, we had to order our bootlegs.
Yep.
DVDs. I still have my bootleg DVDs, and I was obsessed with the producers specifically. So I would watch.
Oh God.
Like I would like try and find as many different versions of the casting to be like, how did this person do it? Like, oh, I want to see like Roger Bart play Leo Bloom, and I'm like, oh, I want to see Hunter Foster play Leo Bloom, and I want to see, like, you know, or even like Martin Short play Leo Bloom. Like, it's just like, all the
do you have that one? Because I have never seen it.
I wish. I did. Jason Alexander and Martin Short as Leo Bloom, which was wild because once again he was supposed to do it originally before Matthew Broderick.
Yep. And he was like, that was the biggest mistake I made, is what he said. It's like, yeah, but he wanted to spend time with his family, which is understandable.
Yeah, which is amazing. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Because he just did The Goodbye Girl. He did Little Me, and he won a Tony for that, right? In 98. And he was like, I think I'm going to take a break. Yeah. Which I understand that.
Yeah. But wild. Could you imagine?
Those wild DVDs, I know, like it's so interesting because some of the websites are still up online, and I just sometimes look back on them. I'm like, those were the days, but now everything's on YouTube. So
I know, it's wild, like just getting Broadway bootleg DVDs, like, and I would just sit in my room, like, because I had a TV, but it didn't have, like, it wasn't connected to cable. It was like a PS2 that I could play DVDs on. I wasn't playing PS2. I wasn't playing any games. I was just watching Broadway bootleg DVDs, and like how do they get that laugh there? Just like me and like 15 years old, 16 years old, like watching, just studying Gary Beach and Nathan Lane and
oh my God,
Oscar and all them, just like masters of their craft. Just be like, this is amazing. And like that, and that's what I love to do. Like, it's so funny because, like, as I said, like, I never thought Jack Kelly would be like, I've always been a character actor. Like in high school, I was always like the character actor, never like the straight leading man. I remember I was cast as Sky Masterson instead of Nathan Detroit in high school, and I was like, what? I was so mad. I was like, I don't mean Sky. I don't mean Nathan Detroit. I was like, this Detroit, And then, but I
He's
got
more
to
fun.
school and they were in New York and they were like, you got to be straight leading man. I was like, oh, okay. So like, but I mean, fortunately that also did work too, which I'm so absolutely grateful for. But you know, I'm as the years have gone, I'm now in my 30s and just being like, I feel like I'm now actually, this is who, like, I'm a character, like doing Nutty Professor, and I got to do the producers right before COVID. I actually got to do it with John Tracy Egan, who I saw close the Broadway show. He was my Max Bialystock, and I saw
my God.
I saw Hunter Foster do Leo, and this is actually amazing. I didn't tell him that I saw him do it, so he's my Max, I'm Leo, and there's a part in the first scene where Leo pulls out a ticket stub of, he's like, oh, and I've always wanted to be a Broadway producer. And you're like, this is the show that I saw, the Ballyhoos of 42. I believe that's what the show was. And like, and this is me. And I've always wanted to be a Broadway producer because of you. And I had a picture of me and John Tracy Egan at the stage door of the producers when I'm 16, 17. And I had that in my prop wallet. And on the last performance, instead of the ticket stub, I pulled out the picture of me and him at the stage door. Like, I've always wanted to be a Broadway producer. And he just like starts to get these misty eyes because he's like, you didn't tell me that, like, we're like literally sharing a dressing room. He's like, and we get back after like, it was like maybe like right before like the Guten Tag Hop Clop, like because we're on stage together the majority of the time. And he's like, you didn't tell me like this the whole time. I was just like the entire time I was like doing it with him, and it was just like one of those another magical freaking moment where you're like,
wow.
Picture, and it was just like, and I showed him the picture of the two of us at the stage door at the St. James in 2000.
That's the sweetest.
2007 is
like.
Maybe.
What are the odds of that? I forgot that the producers ran that long too, by the way. But yeah, that was.
I mean, I have so many stories like that. Like, and my first gig out of COVID was doing The Wizard of Oz at here in Pittsburgh. It was called Heinz Field. It's now Acrisure Stadium. But because the theaters were all shut down, it was Pittsburgh CLO, and they were doing The Wizard of Oz. And I was I have another Wizard of Oz poster. This is my childhood bedroom, by the way. I'm here because I'm about to start another show at Pittsburgh CLO. And I was obsessed with the Scarecrow. And there's this, I know you know this, the 1998 Madison Square Garden Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
So I remember this is another magical, crazy, insane story of like, what is happening? So I, of course, I sent in a tape. I was like, hey, I would love to be a part of this. Like, I also didn't like when you think about dream roles, like I don't even think about the Scarecrow as a dream role. Cause I'm like, you don't think about it on stage that much, but like I was obsessed. Like in this room alone, I have so many just Scarecrow things. And I sent in a tape and I got hired, but the director was Glenn Cassell, who directed Kathy Rigby's Peter Pan, which was the first show I ever saw at Pittsburgh CLO. Jerry McIntyre was the choreographer, who I was obsessed with Joseph. And he was the choreographer. And I remember very viscerally the first time I got a CD player. I was a little kid, Christmas morning, and I got 2 CDs. One was Kathy Rigby and Peter Pan, and the second one was the Madison Square Garden Wizard of Oz.
Wizard of Oz. And
the Dorothy on that was Jessica Grove, and she sings Over the Rim. That's the first song. So literally, I remember being at my grandma's house and like putting the headphones in and being like transported. Like it's a beautiful recording if y'all don't know it, and just been listening this girl's voicing Over the Rainbow, and like I studied that thing. I was like, I knew who everybody was. Jessica Grove. Cut to 2021. Pittsburgh CLO, Wizard of Oz. I'm the Scarecrow, and Jessica Grove is my Dorothy.
What?
Was Dorothy. And I was like,
oh my God.
I was like, are you kidding me? So I'm like literally singing If I Only Had a Brain to Jessica Grove, who was the first person I ever heard sing with earphones on. Like I got a CD player and like I listened to it with the earphones on. And I'm standing backstage being directed by Glenn Cassell, who directed the first show I'd ever seen in my entire life, which changed my entire life, listening to Jessica sing it, and I'm dressed as the Scarecrow and I get to be the Scarecrow. It's like, what do you mean? Like, this is insane. Like, it was just
what are the odds? Jeez.
It's like stuff like that where you're like, what is happening? There's so
life
many.
can bring you so many magical moments.
I have so many stories like that. Can I do one more and then?
Of course you can. Well, you got to write a book at some point too, right, Dan? Right? Are we gonna write a book?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm actually so glad because I'm like, could you
Go
forget
ahead,
about?
keep going. I want the tea.
Because you wake up, sometimes you wake up and you're like, what is happening? And then, but like thinking about all that, I'm like, this is insane. So another thing, I think maybe the third CD I ever got was the Beauty and the Beast original Broadway cast recording, and I was obsessed with Lumiere. I was like, that's actually like a dream role. I've never done it. But Gary Beach, who was also from the producers, was nominated for a Tony for doing Lumiere, and I was a weird little kid. Like I just wanted to be Gary Beach, and like if for those who know Gary Beach, like he like was gone way too soon, but a master of his craft. I believe Easy Street, him doing Rooster in Easy Street in the 70s is on YouTube still. I extracted it because I was like, I need to have this forever. His physicality, just his stage presence, he's a master. And that was one of those things. He was I got to meet him through a friend of mine, just one of these like divine synchronicity things. And he gave me my first backstage tour. He was doing the first revival of Les Mis as Thénardier. Mm-hmm. And that was my first Broadway show. And I saw the producers that night with John Tracy Egan and Hunter Foster. And so I got to see Gary do Thénardier, and he gave me a backstage tour. And like, it was just, I was literally obsessed. Like anybody from my childhood knows like Dan and Gary Beach. Like, yeah. And then too, and so I got to like, I would message out. I mean, I wrote him letters and stuff like that. And then cut to me getting a Disney theatrical show when I knew him through, Beauty and the Beast. And literally cut to, and my friend was like, oh, I'm sure he was living in Florida at the time. We were going to Miami, and it was like, they were like, I bet he would like, I'm like, he has to come see the show. I was like, yes, because I saw him do so many things, and like he took me backstage at so many different places. And we were in Orlando the week before, and I was in the Beast, the Be Our Guest restaurant with Steve Blanchard, who was the Beast, the longest running Beast in Beauty and the Beast, and his wife, Meredith Inglesby, they met. She was Babette for the longest time too, and I'm pretty sure Stephanie was with us too, and Jacob Kemp, who was our Davy, and I was sitting in the Be Our Guest restaurant in Disney World, and I get a call, and it's Gary Beach. And
oh my God.
I gave him my number, and I'm sitting in the Be Our Guest restaurant, and I'm talking to Gary Beach.
Hello.
And then saying he's going to get house seats, and then he's going to come see me do my Disney theatrical Broadway show and give him a backstage tour in Miami. Oh. And that was just like I was just like, this is insane. This is absolutely insane.
That man was so darn talented. I just so sad we lost him. But he earned all those Tonys that he got. He got didn't he get 2? I think he got one for the producers, and
just
get one for something?
He got a ton of noms, but he got one for the producers, for Roger Dupree and the producers. But
very well deserved. Like that role is his. I'm sorry, I've seen it so many times, but when I see the bootleg, slime tutorial, I always see that one because he's just so great. He's so great.
100, yeah, it's insane. He was so amazing. Yeah.
Well, I have another surprise for you. Okay. I think I found a slime tutorial of you in the Goodbye Girl, but it's only audio. So I added some pictures. So let's just take a listen. This is the updated version of the King scene that they had. They updated the lyrics. So here's a little snippet of some slime tutorial. Dan, here we go.
I'm dying. I told myself this tragedy would have a happy ending. I was lying. I'm trapped before the audience from hell, and what I'm selling, they're not buying.
Here is the head of Hastings.
Oh, so dear, I love the man that I must weep. I'm flopping. They hate me. I'm killing my career. It's Hari Kiri at rock bottom. It's the nadir. A blend of Al Pacino, Boris Karloff with a dollop of Darth Vader.
That scene was wild. That was one of the hardest. Like, I've done a lot of hard things on stage, but like, this is tricky material. This is
because you're in an alien costume. We were all curious because I had done an interview with the original cast and we knew that this was coming up. And we're like, how are they going to tackle this change? Because it really needed to be changed.
Yeah.
And so I had a chance to see a sneak peek of it. And I was like, I don't want to know anything. So when we saw it, it was like, oh my God, this is hilarious.
And like, truly, the lyrics that David wrote for it, David directed it and David wrote the lyrics for the show. If you all don't know that, but they're so good. I was like, this is so good. And like how even like the jokes, like, because it's a reoccurring joke that they bring up a lot in Act 2. And I'm just like, this is it. The things that he wrote, I was like, this is brilliant. Of course it is, but just like, it's just so funny how that all comes together. It's just wild. Yeah.
And he had to get Neil Simon's estate to approve of it.
Yes.
That was like the only way it was going to happen. So, and they did, because once they found out it was him, they're like, oh, sure, that's fine. Just let's listen to it and then we're good to go. And so I just keep hoping. I pray to God, because I would love to direct The Goodbye Girl, but I want to direct this version of it, please. You know, so, but I don't know if they'll ever release it. Do you hear anything? Or
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I haven't talked to David in a second, but I'm sure I know he would love that too, because it was. I mean, it's based on the movie. The movie's from the 70s, right? It's the 70s.
I think 77. Yeah,
7. So like it was definitely dated material, but the way that we updated it, it's just a charming rom-com, and it's not a current rom. Like, it's still set in the 90s. And so it's just like, it just nostalgia for, we're all these like bringing stuff back, and like no original material, but like or no original ideas or whatever, but just like there's just something about, like, it's just as what you're saying, like cheerful and like not pessimistic, and just like it's just a lovely like rom-com about two actors in New York with a kid, and like just trying to make their dreams come true, but also just like, but it's just funny,
and not worrying about the rent.
And not worrying.
Dude, like when they talk about money and that, I'm like, oh my God, I can't even imagine what the rent would be like now.
Absolutely not. Yeah, there is like the plot point is that yes, she's she's in the apartment because the guy she was dating, it's his apartment, but he subletted it to my character, and he's like, oh, but I guess we'll just live together. I'm like, that's the only thing we're like, yeah, okay,
make it happen.
With our daughter, but it's a rom-com. It's just like, yeah.
So I did come up with this question for the Q&A, and I wanted to ask it again because I want to see if your answer is different. So what Broadway star would you like to have as a roommate if you had to share an apartment in New York City?
I feel like I said Chris Eber. I'm pretty sure I said Chris Eber, right?
Yes, you did. Yeah,
I did.
Is that still the answer?
Honestly, yeah. Absolutely. He's amazing. And I know he's clean. I know he's like he checks all the boxes. Like, absolutely still Chris Eber.
I love it. Especially because he's clean. And that's one of my check marks. It's like it has to be a clean apartment.
And he's that's the thing. Just like being in this industry, just like stage dooring Shrek so many times, and also just like knowing him from Two of a Kind, being married to Ashley Olsen's dad.
Oh my God!
Right? Just like so, like he's been a part of like
that
forever. But he just like was always the ultimate professional. Like we'd be doing like he had bit parts in The Goodbye Girl. Like he had 3 different characters. They were very, very small parts. But when he was in the rehearsal room, like he was watching us work. Like he wasn't on his phone. Like he was so present and just like knew his lines and just showed up and like gave the freshest performance like every single time. Like it didn't matter because we're in a very small off-Broadway space. Like, and he was just doing
it was very like I have never been off Broadway before. So when I walked in, I went, "Oh, there's no microphones."
Yeah, we
like I didn't know what to expect, but I loved it.
Microphones. That was wild. But it was just one of those things. Like he had no ego about it whatsoever. Like the Death Becomes Her that he's doing right now. Like I
Yes.
think he had just heard about that was like going through whenever we were like while we were doing that, like that was going to happen.
Oh my
And he just
God.
had zero ego about anything. Like he was just so down to clown, and just like the entire tech process was just like a lot of me just being like, all right, now tell us about Triumph of Love with Betty Buckley and F. Murray Abraham and Kevin Chamberlain and Roger Bart. Like, and just like he has just, you know, he's just the best. Like he's just absolute, like he's, you know, they're talking about people like masters of their craft. Like once again, like I know the business is constantly changing, and you know, there's TikTok stars on Broadway and things like that, which is, you know, absolutely amazing. Like there should be room for everything, but just like as far as people who've like put in the work
time
and like
and, oh
the
my God.
nitty-gritty like craft of just like, which is always, once again, like as I said, I was subconsciously doing this like as a 16-year-old, like watching, you know, like literally like watching the beats, like how long are they pausing like for that. I was like, oh, or like when they move a little
Their
bit, like
comedic timing.
yeah, the comedic timing, just insane. And that's how Chris is. It was just like, you know, he wasn't doing it for the money, I'll tell you that. Like it was just truly just like he wanted to be there, and he's just absolutely amazing. And so
I was thrilled. I didn't know he was going to be in it. I was like, oh my gosh. And then the week before I saw you in the show, I'd come for the other Q&A, and Michael, who was Patsy in Spamalot, Chris walked out and he turned around and he said, hey there, Michael. And I don't know how long they haven't seen each other, because Chris was in Spamalot too. Yeah. So that was just a magical moment to see that happen, because I just finished the production of Spamalot and I'm a huge fan. I was like, oh my God, they're Patsy and Galahad.
Galahad, truly. Yeah. That was another wild thing about that. Michael McGrath, who was Martin Short's, which Martin Short's standby in the original production of Goodbye Girl, was Michael McGrath, who was, as say, Patsy. And he's did so many amazing things, but he came to see the show and was, you know, representing the original Elliot Garfield. And I got to meet him and chat with him, because he never got to, Martin Short never called out, and Michael never got to go on, but I did the entire run. I mean, it wasn't 9 months, but you know, and so we had a really lovely connection. And because we maybe done like a reading together. It was like, I didn't get to know him. I didn't know him that well at all, but just connecting over that. And he passed away just a few months later. Just being like,
oh my God, that was a shock.
Yeah,
it was heartbreaking, because he was so sweet and kind to me too, because he decided not to do the interview. We had like the reunion, and which was fine. And then we got to hear that he was going to join this and do the Q&A. So it was so great to finally meet him. And I just said, thank you so mumuch for your time. You know, I think you're so talented, because again, spam a little bit. So, but what a talented, sweet guy. And again, if you guys watch the video, it's the link is in the show notes of our Q&A. Right before that, Michael tells a hilarious story about Martin Short, you know, doing some like causing some trouble.
Hilarious or just like traumatizing? I was
traumatizing.
Like, so mean. I was like, only Martin Short can get away with that. I was like, anybody, I'll be like, that is so mean. It's
hey, the whole production team was a part of it, so it wasn't just Martin, because like that's what he specifically said. So he was like, everybody was in on it except me, and it was April Fool's Day.
You never know that. It's just like so crazy, but it's also like that's what I also loved about Michael too. Just like he didn't have to be at the theater; he was like literally at his apartment. So he was just like, I've got a great best job in the world. I'm on Broadway, but I'm like sitting at home in my apartment. Like it was wild.
I love those stories.
Yeah.
We have another question from the audience. Anthony says, hi, Dan. Tammy recently tackled the national anthem. Difficult piece to perform. Yes, it is. But what music or performances do you think you've had that are the most challenging? Because we were just talking about that.
Musically? That's a great question. That's a really great question.
Have you done Into the Woods?
No, I haven't done Sondheim yet. I'm about to do Young Frankenstein at Pittsburgh CLO. We run all summer, which is lovely. And there's a song called The Brain, which is my first song, and there's a lot of patter going on.
Yes.
That. Like Catherine and Newsies, and it's different scientists. So I'm like running that in my head a lot. But I'm trying to think of a better I mean, I'll say singing Santa Fe 8 times a week.
Oh,
As the Act 1 finale, just completely by yourself. Like, I'm not comparing it to Elphaba by any means whatsoever, but just like, I don't know, with at least you got like those people beneath you, like singing backup, or like when you're just like you in a spotlight, just doing that. Like that was
got to deliver. That's it.
was-
No magic, nothing.
no, like truly, like for a Disney show, like
You got nothing, honey. Just a newspaper.
Spotlight and you. I was like, that was hard. That was hard. And I also thought I would never do that. I was like, when I did it for a little over a year, and I was like, never again. Amazing, fantastic. I was like, I'll never have to close an Act 1 show like that ever again. And then coming out of COVID, Disney wanted to put together this like kind of Disney holiday special thing that they could license to different theaters to do different holiday, like as a holiday show. So something different besides the Grinch and Elf, or what other Christmas shows do they just do all the time?
Christmas Story, all
Christmas
those other.
exactly. So Disney was like with Paper Mill, so they created this show called Jolly Holiday that we did at the Paper Mill Playhouse. It was me, Kara Lindsay, Major Attaway, who was Genie in Aladdin, Kissy Simmons, who was the longest Nala in Lion King, and Jaron Mewes, who actually had never done a Disney show before, but was just very lucky, I suppose. And it was just the 5 of us. Is that 5 of us or is there 6? Doesn't matter. Do the math later. But and of course it was at Paper Mill. And so we were all, this was so hard. This was so hard. We all had to sing like our own big numbers from our Disney theatrical shows and then sing backup for everybody else while never leaving the stage. And there's just like a big Christmas tree behind us with different menorahs, different us. And we're playing ourselves. Like I'm playing like, hey everybody, I'm Dan DeLuca. And like, we're playing ourselves at a Christmas party. And of course, and we didn't know what the show was because they were writing it around us. And I get the song breakdown list, and literally Act 1 closes with me singing Santa Fe. I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like at Paper Mill. I was like,
oh
this
God.
is so mean. Like, what an honor. Like, I'll say it once again, what an absolute honor.
It's a hard song.
I was like, this is how we close Act 1 with this? That is so mean. And like, I just remember being and once again, all the Disney theatrical people came back, Tom Schumacher, like all of the creatives came back. I was like, hey guys, it's so good to see ya. I'm like, let's do this again, shall we? Just like years later. This was just 2022, I think. We were just coming, and
I didn't even hear about it. I'd actually would have loved to have seen it.
You would have loved it. It was right. It was for you. You didn't get the invite. That's insane.
Ah, darn it!
But
Yes.
there's B-roll. It's on YouTube.
I'm gonna find it now. There's got to be a bootleg. I mean, a slime tutorial if it's somewhere too.
I don't know about that, but yeah, I was just like, this is how Act 1 closes. That's insane. So just constantly
That one.
Santa Fe. And over again, and then it literally like the next month, me and Kara went down to do the Disney Festival of the Arts in Epcot, and then they're
nice.
like, oh, you have to sing Santa Fe 3 times a night. I was like,
Oh my God.
and it's
You were performing on that awesome stage there,
my
right
God.
across the way from the American Adventure.
100%.
Which is
It's like,
pretty cool.
it's such an honor. Like once again, like it's such an honor, like such an honor. And
But it's heck.
I was like, this has to stop.
I'm just surprised they didn't give you out there from Hunchback 2 just to like pile on and be like, you're gonna sing 2 crazy songs.
I was actually originally supposed to do Out There, but then I was singing Strongest Suit from Aida, weirdly enough. And
Wait, what?
In Jolly Holiday, I sang Strongest Suit. I don't
Wait,
know
what?
why. But there's the same music director. Yeah, don't.
Why?
I
Wait, because you're wearing a Santa suit, or like what was happening?
No, why did I do that? Missed opportunity.
I'm so confused.
You're on the Christmas next time. No, it was just like
Okay.
literally everyone was singing just like different things. Like we had a whole Mary Poppins medley that Kara was doing a lot of like, and all the guys played different parts and things like that. We did High School Musical, but anyway, it all goes back to after we closed Jolly Holiday, the Jim Abbott, who's the Disney theatrical music director who supervises all the special Disney concerts and stuff, he was like, "You should do Fortune Favors the Brave from Aida." I was like, "Yes!" I was like that, and that kind of became my thing. I was like, and I got to sing Fortune Favors the Brave, Adam Pascal, and like it's like Elton John, like up. I was like this, yes, this. So I got to do that. I got to do that.
That's a great choice. Oh my God, I love that.
I love that song. I was like, oh my gosh, and yeah, it's so good. It's so good.
They need, if they do a revival, you should audition for it for sure. I hear there's supposed to be a revival, but like nothing's really happened since COVID, I think, is the problem. So
they're doing it in the Netherlands, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I guess they're making their way over here.
Yeah. Hercules is in Germany now. It's just like
Hercules went from paper mill to Germany. It's like, wait, what's going on? I keep hoping that they'll like do some like other, like if there could be any Disney film that could be a musical that hasn't gotten the treatment, is there anything you would really like to see besides Muppet Christmas Carol? I'm like one of those people, I really want Pete's Dragon to have its own musical at some point.
That's so I love that. That's sweet.
Got a puppet, right?
And puppet. First thing that comes to mind, like as a kid, I just like Nightmare Before Christmas. I think would be a really cool opportunity, especially like thinking about like business being like Halloween to Christmas time. Like,
oh my gosh,
I don't know.
You've got it.
I don't know. Like, I just feel like there's a lot of cool opportunities, like Rocky Horror-esque
the puppet
people, and I don't know. I love the idea of that.
Perfect. Like they have so much merch for that. They could do that. Hocus Pocus, I guess, too. And I always keep hoping they're going to do something with some holiday thing. That's a great idea. I would love that because they have that Jack Skellington puppet. They did like a short sing along last year at Disney World with the puppet. Yeah, and it looks so cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, I have so many things that, especially as a kid, like that's all I was just like dreaming up different ideas of like Disney musicals and things like that. Like,
well, you have Thomas Schumacher on speed dial, I'm sure. So
his or like even imagine like Pinocchio, like a cool like Pinocchio. It's always with puppets. It's always with puppets.
Yes.
I don't know. There's just like
they have Geppetto. You've seen the Steven Schwartz Geppetto, right?
Okay, another story.
Oh God, here we go. Do I need to get tissues?
I love Geppetto.
Me too.
So this was also before Newsies. So this is probably 2011, maybe 2012. There's a Steven Schwartz jukebox musical called Snapshots. Okay. And it's written by the guy whose idea, I believe his name is David Stern. I should know this for sure. It's been a long time. I'm quite confident his name is David Stern. But his idea was Geppetto. And he wrote I believe he wrote the screenplay for Geppetto, and like Geppetto was his baby, and Steven Schwartz wrote that with him. And so, and Steven Schwartz music, and it's Drew Carey as Geppetto, like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Wayne Brady, Usher. Like it's a wild cast.
It's a wild.
And it's so good. But the Snapshots they were doing at the Goodspeed Opera House in Connecticut, and it's all Steven Schwartz music, and it was Steven Schwartz. And so it was a cast of 6, and there's 2 characters. It's about like this old couple that are like not getting a divorce, but like their marriage isn't great, and they go up into the attic and they look at like snapshots of like their entire life together. So you see different incarnations of them when they were little and when they were middle-aged and when they were older. And so David Stern and it was one of those, once again, very magical things of like getting to sing and work with Steven Schwartz on this show. There's a cast recording of it on Spotify. I don't know who's in it, but it's not us.
And you said it's called Snapshots? Because I want to write this down, actually.
Another thing you would love. And there were songs from Geppetto in it. There's songs from, I mean, everything. And it was me. I was playing the youngest version. Matthew Scott was the middle-aged version. And Mark Jacoby was the oldest. And the character's name was actually Dan. So it was like, I was Danny. and Dan and Daniel. And Karen Mason was the oldest. I forget what her character's name is. And then Elizabeth Stanley, Jagged Little Pill, Elizabeth Stanley, and Effie Artema was the youngest.
Oh my
version. So
God.
it's like this crazy cast. Insane.
What was this?
And that was Snapshots. And so like
No, when? Like what year was this?
it was 2012, I think.
Oh wow. Okay.
2013. So
What Geppetto songs did he include?
what did we sing? It had to have been Since I Gave My Heart Away.
Yeah.
Had to have been that. Yeah. Yeah. Since I Gave My Heart
That
Away.
one's like the theme.
Yeah,
I thought maybe they might, because if you had like little, I thought you had said you might have children in the show. You could have done toys, but that's like my favorite one.
I sang Popular like as like a kid who didn't fit in. Like I was like, I'm not popular. And like what am I like? I could sing like a lot of like Morning Glow, a lot of Pippin stuff. That was just like right when the Pippin revival was happening too. And I was like, I would love to do Pippin.
Oh yeah, that was amazing. Oh
Yeah.
my God. What
But it
about
was
Prince of
like-
Egypt? Did any Prince of Egypt songs?
Oh my gosh, I have to look at the list.
Because I just am I love that score too.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And that you've seen the musical, yeah? Did you see the pro show?
I have not seen the musical yet. I know I should, but people, I hear mixed reviews and they say they don't even have Playing with the Big Boys now, which is a Mother Martin Short
Martin Short.
song. It comes down to him. But I'm like, how did you not have that song? Like, that's the villain song, for God's sake, please.
Those characters aren't in it. I don't. Yeah, those characters aren't in it. No.
Darn it.
Yes.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, so I can't judge. But no, I have not seen it yet. I want to.
love Prince of Egypt. Yeah, and there's new songs that are like transcendent. It's I love it.
I heard Footsteps in the Sand, and that one's real. That's a song for you for sure.
It's there's so many good things. So many good things. Highly recommend it.
Yeah. It's there. Oh God, we could talk forever. So you're going to be in Pittsburgh. I can't even talk. Pittsburgh for Young Frankenstein. What's the name of the theater? And just in case anybody can come see you.
Yeah, Pittsburgh CLO, and it's at the Greer. It's at the Greer Theater, and we run July. Mid-July, I don't know the dates. Mid-July to September 1st. So
you got some time. I'm going to see if I can come. I'm going to see if
Yeah,
maybe I can hop on a
please do.
train, and maybe I can get a tour of the theater, and I can get a picture with you, and like it could be magic. Like poor Dan, he's like, don't bring any merch. Just that.
I have all the Young Frankenstein merch. Yeah, but it is so funny because like people who've seen me. Who saw me do Newsies, it's like, and they were, teenagers or like kids at the time. And now I'm doing shows with them and I'm becoming that person now. And it's so weird to me.
Yeah.
And they won't tell me to like the dresser on the last show that I just did too. They didn't
get
tell
nervous.
They saw
I wouldn't either.
And they were like, I just didn't want to. I was like, it's just so wild how it's just like to be like going into like that era of just being like, oh my gosh, I was like, I'm becoming that person now. I was like, it's so
well,
crazy.
You were seeing like Newsies was just something that blew up. It was unbelievable. Yeah. So you were Jack Kelly for so many people.
Yeah, and to tour to like people's hometowns because it didn't get to run on Broadway that long. So like people didn't really get to see like the phenomenon that it was. So that was just a really special part of it, being able to like take it to people's hometowns and do it for people there. So yeah.
Well, I'm glad that you're another Pennsylvania person, because David Zippel, when I had him on the show, he was like, he's like actually closer to me. I'm from the area too. Like, there we go. The PA people.
There's a lot of amazing Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh theater people. Yeah, like Gene Kelly's from Pittsburgh.
No. Yes. Oh my God. I forgot about that too. Yeah. Cause he mentioned it during like a Hello Dolly interview. And I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. And I got to know like another person, like I got to know his wife so well from doing Newsies. Like she came a few times and
she's so what an amazing person. I see her posts all the time.
Yeah, she's so wonderful. I actually have Gene right there. American in Paris.
Oh, hey, you should do Xanadu, and then you could be like not the Gene Kelly part, but you could be the guy, the artist instead. Like that's another Gene Kelly role I love.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, before we end, we do a Kodak moment. So let's just look at the camera. I'll count back from 3, and we'll have like a little photo for tomorrow. So cool. 3, 2, 1. Perfect. And thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you to everybody who also sent in questions. This was a lot of fun. If you'd like to see more interviews and more reunions, please feel free to subscribe to my channel. You can also share our conversation. Dan's on Instagram, so you can tag him. His Instagram is also in the show notes below. And if you want to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, please feel free to do so. My website's TammyTuckey.com. So thank you again, Dan. You're so awesome. It's so great to talk to you again.
Yeah, we're such nerds. I'm like, it's so great to talk to fellow nerds. Like,
the best to nerd out. So thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you really soon. And remember, why this? Why me? Why now? Good evening, everybody.